Hello, hello, hello. We're just gonna wait a little bit as folks, make their way into this virtual space. Thank you all for being here. I hope that everyone is safe and healthy. Um, these are definitely trying times for all of us, um, and we're just trying our best, right? Hopefully, I can get your questions if I can figure this out. I'm reading to you from Toledo, Ohio, so I think we should have some good sunlight for this still. And I think I will just get started since it is 7:02 already. And I know folks have things to do. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Poets of Pajamas, for having me. My name is Ayendy Bonifacio. I am an assistant professor of U.S. Ethnic Literary Studies at the University of Toledo. I want to first acknowledge that I am speaking from the land of the Ottawa, Seneca, and Erie peoples. This evening, I will be reading from poems from my bilingual debut poetry collection, To the River, We Are Migrants. I know that most of my listeners here are English speakers, but I am going to begin each poem with the Spanish version of that poem so that we get a sense, at least sonically, of what my poems are doing in Spanish. So with that said, I'd like to begin, and I'm just going to be reading for like 18 to 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'll take some questions if you have any for me. Again, thank you for being here. The first poem is entitled Rio Piedra. Rio Piedra, niños trompeteados de lugares de colores lejanos, tus pecados caligrafiados en tu piel y cara. La vaina es real. Se habla de construir alto, de bloquear el sol, de levantar una sombra para fugitivos como tú y yo. Una vez fuimos hermanos sin fronteras, ya no mantendrán a sus hermanos. Una vez fuimos hermanas en esa vida cuando les dimos a luz a la tierra, ya no se mantendrán a sus hermanas. River Piedra. Trumpeted children of far-hued places, sins calligraphed on your skins and faces. The hype is real. There's talk of building high, of blocking the sun, of raising a running shadow for runaways like you and me. We were once brothers without borders. They will no longer keep their brothers. We were once sisters in that lifetime when we birthed the earth. They will no longer keep their sisters. I repose in the long shadow, avoiding the sun on my side of the wall, graffitiing my life on the weight of monuments. I bring you paz in bold type. Hail many, fallen gravely. Look how the desert settles over our ancestral markings. Pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death, palm to palm, grounded eyes and knees. We've served you in your language. Quote, on the side of the river Piedra, I sat and wept, catching my breath, afraid of the bloodhounds. End quote. The next poem is titled gente del sol y la luna. And buenas, Eduardo. Hola, thanks for being here. Now I see that there are comments coming in here. Good, figuring it out. Gente del sol y la luna. Somos un pueblo entero ahí en ese mar caribeño, de pie con nuestros antepasados en bloques de subastas, nuestros huesos en fragmentos rígidos como las tablas manchadas, donde la leche se unía con la miel en un caldero de locura. People of the sun and moon. We are a whole people down in ese mar caribeño, standing with our ancestors on auction blocks, our bones in fragments, stiff like the sullied boards where milk met honey in our cauldron of locura. What mixed in that pit was kicked to slow tamboras, un dolor del color de coconuts beat by the sun. We are that island left de remate, where the foaming beaches don't give a reflection, and we drink our traumas like a purgante. Like the moon now, with our one face always nearly falling into the earth. Que locura to always feel like both sides aren't black, for the face in the shadow is the same that harvests light. River tongue. Allow them to pull from los acentos gruesos golpeando las voices to a black and blue, pero no todo se traduce. Lengua river. Se jalan por los thick accents, pounding the voces to a negro y azul, but not everything translates. My colors sink in the babble like corrientes that washed my tongue, where language is the sound of the creek consumed by the river. The lengua rivers first met on the footsteps de un edificio in the early 90s, cuando in Spanish yo no tenía un English name. My tongues are where the rolling rivers clatter, where el desgastado salmón swims against what belongs to aquí y allá. El sol nos seca las lenguas, and the riverbed splinters. A lot of these poems, and I hope that you're kind of catching these themes, are about language, are about belonging or not belonging to a language, to a place, and how this feeling of belonging or this condition, right, is attached to how we sound, our accents. Not only that, but also where we come from, our citizenship, our race, our gender. The collection is also about grief and what losing this sense of belonging feels like. And I think you're going to hear more of that in the next poems. Aprendiendo a hablar. Primero aprendí a trabajar, después aprendí a trabajar duro. Learning to speak. I first learned to work, then I learned to work hard. Without strength, I lifted vowels and consonants like heavy boxes that needed to be moved, hating this language for taking so much from us. Some early Sunday mornings, I accompanied my father to work. I remember the A train rattling, no one making a sound from Broadway Junction to Fulton Street. Once across the river, conversations in English broke the sacred silence. I was learning to understand, but still, from their shadows I observed Papi, awakened by the sound of the popping P's and slithering S's, looked at the passengers with severed eyes. He avoided mine, but once I locked his gaze, I saw that, like me, his lips were sealed but even tighter. His mouth was a smooth surface ready for the passage of time. When he died, I plucked a rose from his mouth, pinned it to my lapel. Otros mundos. Cuando era un niño de unos 6 años, llamé a los países mundos. Estos eran mundos a los que había que viajar a través del cielo. Other worlds. When I was a child of about 6, I called countries mundos. These were worlds that had to be traveled to through the sky. When it was time for us to leave our world, my grandmother's house filled up with people coddling tin cups of café. Ay, se me van a ir a los muchachos, like an excerpt from an old bachata, ay, 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 in 3 steps that got going back and forth in that little house. My brother and I, about the size of a mata, were ready to become immigrants. Ay, pero se me van los muchachos míos. Long farewells separate us like exoplanets. The idea of life in another almost promises to elude us, for it is unimaginable. We were naturalized in our new world, planted deep in the coarse concrete, growing any which way we could, coiling around rusting fences and closing courtyards that no one cared enough to clear, so we called home. Ode to my cicatrix. This poem is an ode really to a vaccination that I got on my left shoulder, which I've later learned that many immigrants have gotten, which leaves a bad scar, right? And for a long time, it was something that I again sort of like recognized as marking me as other, right? Ode to my cicatrix. Cicatrix, you are more than a word that never healed. In Spanish, the X is disfigured, and in its place, Z, the last worthy letter. Cicatriz, you are a glance at someone I thought I knew in the busy street. On my left shoulder, you are a souvenir shaped like a new star or a bad omen, burning citizenship on my brown skin. Cicatriz, you are the river that naturalized me, a gift from the old Conuco hospital before I knew that America was alive with tubercular fears. Cicatriz, you are a stellar nursery, holding life in another place, a kept promise that I beat the odds for some reason, who knows why I get to be alive. Cicatriz, there were days when I wanted to cover you up with a dragon tattoo or a blooming peony or anything that could make you beautiful. Every kid that ever saw you asked, what is that shit on your shoulder? Cicatriz, you were our escape from the dirt roads that went nowhere. My mother's and her mother's answered rosaries pinched to the end. Cicatriz, it's a vaccination I got when I was a little kid in DR, I used to say. Oh, I don't have that. El fallecimiento de mi padre. Como el río me lleva más allá de las líneas de inmigración. My father's passing, like el río, takes me back past the immigration lines that brought us here, when I was the size of a cherry bush, across the street from the church that taught me the sacrament, the Eucharist, when I saw you dressed like an altar boy and incense filled my lungs with religion. Through the door of our basement apartment, the floor was checkered, the walls were white, where we started underground. Past the door of your old Camry and our walk to our first day of high school, past the steel doors that led to the gymnasium, past the Rio Bao to our casita en el campo, where crickets drew their machetes and your passport read visado. Past every Brooklyn stop on the A train to your delivery boy job on 34th Street, where I pretended to clean tables and take down orders, past all the Manhattan stops, homebound dreaming on your shoulder, past all of that, all I want is the screeching sound of the train still turning. The river. The river is the atom bomb, the end of the line splitting water and sky and grain and silence. The river is the avalanche roaring, taking us with foaming darkness before we could reach the ocean. The river is las campesinas who gave our fathers names, our mothers strength. The river is the rosary pinched to its end, where the stream dried and the soil withered like the pits of cerezas. To the river we are migrants, and it does not matter how our mouths open. Caminando al revés. Mi madre me dijo que el diablo camina al revés y que los buenos niños católicos no caminan así. To walk backwards. My mother told me that the devil walks backwards, that it was not what good Catholic boys did. To walk backwards is to move without knowing. This was before I shed the pain that was my faith. I walk backwards to not fall in the trenches, the bullets that riddle every post on my social media. ICE agents knock once at the door with their American fists because inevitability stamped on my face. When the US's Chivo was elected, my little brother picked up the phone and asked, "Am I getting deported?" I thought, walk backwards and don't think about where your parents come from. The siren will keep singing your name as long as you have a name. Still, the knock remains. You listen to that American TV perfect English, Dique, the voice of God on earth. But I walk backwards, telling myself, don't let those knees buckle, muchacho. Mi taita. Taita is, maybe I should say this, is a word that many Dominicans, and I'm learning other Hispanophone ethnic groups use to refer to their father, taita. I thought it was only Dominicans, but I've learned recently that others have used it as well. Mi taita. Austero pero fino, bien afeitado, estricto disciplinario, quien creció entre huertos agrios. Mi taita. Mi taita. Coarse but fine, cleanly shaven, strict disciplinarian who grew up among the tangy orchards. Mi taita. You are a myth to me now. Does that make me one too? The flesh is a tragedy, then it turns to nothing. We share this ending that mixes in the wind. Though you are a dead star now, you still pull me into the baptismal river where I dreaded those rabid currents. Years have lapsed since you lifted us from our inherited montes and planted us here for others to grow. Time has made us strange, though between us there is a name, a promise, now a symbol that is like a people, like a nation buried in guilt. And for the last poem, what I'd like to do is actually read from an unpublished collection, well, an unpublished work that I'm happy to share with all of you here. This poem is entitled Culebras en la hierba. Hay culebras en la hierba. Caminamos junto al río con la esperanza de distraernos. El viento en la hierba vibra. Es suave y cálido. 545 niños migrantes están separados de sus padres y hay una culebra en la hierba. Snakes in the grass. There are snakes in the grass. We walk by the river hoping to distract ourselves. The wind in the grass rattles. It is soft and warm. 545 migrant children are separated from their parents. And there's a snake in the grass. The desert is dry for 1,000,000 years. There are bones in the grass, turning to oxygen particles. The snake moves on its underside. Our mouths fill with air. One of them curls tightly on my leg, making me pulse with its heart. I let it squeeze me tight. I watch you from the grass. The river does not move us. The grass is yellow and tall toward the sun. Thank you all so much for listening and for being here with me this evening on this Sunday. And yeah, I am here to take any questions you might have from any comments, anything. I'm looking at these comments now. Thank you guys so much. Wow, this is wonderful. Thank you for engaging the work. Yeah, that's wonderful. If you have any questions for me, shoot them. I know that it's often hard to ask questions about someone's work, especially when it's deeply personal like this. This collection, which had changed so much throughout the years. At first, it was a meditation on, just what it means for me to be an immigrant, and how, do I turn this language, which is my second language, my second tongue, into the tools for writing poetry, right? Which can feel, I can feel like a complete imposter in doing that. But as the collection grew, it turned into a collection really about loss of language, loss of a country, loss of a father, and I guess and what sounds in writing does loss make, right? So it's something that was really hard to write, but here we are, right, sharing it, growing and healing with it. So I'm just looking to see if there are any cues or comments, anything from folks. The last poem, I should say, is a very different type of poem. It is a prose poem. A lot of my work is in prose too, a lot of my poetry also. But I've been experimenting. A lot of great poets right now are doing a lot of awesome work with prose poetry. And I wanted to, have at it, I guess, attempt to write prose poems just to sort of escape from the confines of the genre, the poetry, whatever, line break, and really focus on the content and the simplicity, the elegance of prose writing. I love an accessible poem. I love a poem that you can sit with, but also that that is accessible to those who don't read poetry regularly. I feel like the prose poem oftentimes facilitates that. Oh, there's a question here from Rafael. He writes, "Are you planning on writing another collection of poems?" Thank you so much for that question. So yes, I am, and I guess I was just speaking about it, right? So I'm working on a prose poetry collection. I still don't know exactly. It's not really a collection, I should say. It's more like a chapbook, because I don't have enough poems yet. But it's all prose poetry, and like To the River We Are Migrants, it will also be a bilingual chapbook. I will have poems both in English and in Spanish, and yeah, I guess I'll be sharing more of that once I figure it out. Let's see. I have a question from Shannon. Hello, Shannon. I think my cues didn't come through. The obvious questions for a virtual reading: how has the pandemic and all its strictures changed the way you work, read, and make sense of your place in the writing community? What are you reading now? That's a great question. Maybe I should answer it backwards. What am I reading now? Let's see. I think the best way to do it is just pull things from the shelf. Well, I gotta shout out Roy G. Guzman's wonderful book, Catrachos. I mean, this collection is just incredible, and Roy is also incredible. I had the privilege of having Roy visit one of my classes last term and engage my students, and they were just blown away by Guzman's work. Also, post-colonial love poem, Natalie Diaz. I am reading, obviously, engaging her work, and yeah, and teaching it too. Just pulling books here that I think are, that I've been thinking a lot about. Daniele Antigua, Ugly Music, beautiful, beautiful book. Again, I'm really thinking about, especially particularly Latinx writers who are new and are experimenting with genre and form. Roberto Carlos Garcia, Black Maybe, what wonderful book. This very talented New York poet, and I think actually Roberto has a new collection now called Elegies, which you should also read. Pardon My Heart by Marcus Jackson. He's from Toledo, Ohio, so I got to shout out Toledo, Ohio right here. Another wonderful, I love the work of Marcus Jackson. He plays so much with language, with sound, with memory, and he's just a treasure to read. And of course, Eduardo Corral's book, Guillotine, which is, I'm a big fan of Eduardo's work. This book I remember when I first read it, I just, I read it immediately. I went through the whole thing and I was just blown away, and I still am by Eduardo's work. So that's what I'm reading now, among other things that I have to read. How has the pandemic affected me? We just moved last year to Toledo, Ohio from New York City during the height of the pandemic, and that was really hard. I have a lot of family in New York, and it was a lot of adjusting, obviously, to teaching in person, online completely, to then thinking about returning back to in person, which is not likely to happen now. Virtual readings are awesome, for engaging the writing community, because this is the way we do things now. That this is the safe way to do it now. But I do miss the face-to-face, sort of engagement. Having a drink with, a writer, just being there with their voice, right, and not just doing it through the virtual, through these algorithms or what have you. That's kind of what's happening. I think we're all trying our best to adjust to this new normal, but readings like this are a way for us to continue reading and engaging our audience and in our community. So, yeah. Rafael asks, "You're not reading Body Facts by Joey Kim?" I'm not reading my partner Joey Kim's book right now. No. You would have to tune in for to a separate reading, but you should definitely read Joey Kim's book. Oh, am I not reading it now? Of course I'm reading it now. I've read it many times. It's a book that obviously sits on my shelf right there. I think I'm in trouble for not grabbing it. We'll see what happens. Any other questions for me? I think we are basically out of time. I don't want to keep folks here. So if there are no questions, I think I'm going to close and say just, again, thank you to Poets in Pajamas for putting this together, for giving me this platform to read to you. Thank you for all of you for being here. And thanks to those who might tune in later and watch this recording. Be safe, be healthy, and just, take it one day at a time. Don't be shy to DM me or message me on Twitter, or email me, to chat or anything. I really appreciate you guys being here. There's a link to the book on the chat. And yeah, thank you, and thank you.